Hello everyone, and welcome to this presentation of EHS Traps, Are You Market Ready? By ChemADVISOR's Dennis Diley. My name is Nathan Peters. I'm the Marketing Director at ChemADVISOR, and I'll be basically helping host this meeting. We will be using GoToMeeting for the interface. That means on the right-hand side of your screen, you should see a dashboard that has the ability to send us questions. We will be taking questions at the end of the presentation, so along the way, if you have anything you'd like to ask, please send it. In addition, there is a chat interface, so if you want to speak to one of the members of the staff immediately, send a chat and we will respond as soon as we are able to. At this point, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Dennis.
Hello. I'd like to thank you all for taking the time from your busy schedules today to spend some time with me and Nathan and talk a little bit and listen to what we think is a great product and something that we'd like you to learn about. What I'm going to really talk about today is, well, one, because you're here, but I'm sure it's a subject that I'm sure it's important to you and probably something that keeps us all a bit uneasy from time to time. And we've decided to call this particular topic Market Readiness. And we're going to learn about market readiness throughout the next 15-20 minutes. And if you want to put another word in your mind, it's one that we tend to use an awful lot here at ChemADVISOR, market readiness or saleability. And the simple concept is, are your products ready to be sold into the countries and markets that they currently are being sold in and are planned to be sold in the future? And because we now have a name on it, it really is just put a name on a number of services and combined services that ChemADVISOR has done for some time now. And really, after delivering these to customers, have decided that it really has been well received and a product that we felt that we might want to put into context and offer to others. So I've chosen to approach this topic by taking the time to explain what we at ChemADVISOR believe it to be, and we're going to talk a bit why we think it is, and probably you'll come to that conclusion or have already why it's important to you. And we'll take a brief run through of those various components that make up a robust market readiness or product stewardship process. And I want you to understand that we perceive it to be a two-part process, and it involves all key functions within a given company, certainly, and a second key component of that is involving the more in-depth HSE processes, many of which you're probably more familiar with, that ensure that the right things happen at the right time. So, okay, market readiness. You probably have formed some thoughts in your own mind, and I'm going to start here, I think, with a nice simple diagram that certainly at any company, there are very tightly aligned processes that result in a robust product stewardship program. And certainly product stewardship and how it is employed at any given company will differ from those at another company. But nonetheless, that being said, they all need to include, we believe, key functions and units within a company. And if they're not all working together, HSE, marketing, manufacturing, development, you don't have a cohesive process. You don't have some binding thread that binds it all together and really creates a successful and working product stewardship program. I said there were two parts. I'm going to start out with the company perspective, kind of that bigger macro view of it all, and walk through a few steps there that I think will help focus it from that standpoint. Market readiness starts in many HSE, or certainly company processes, start with sound document management processes that ensure when data is needed to support new markets, reporting requirements, or compliance activities, that the data and information is available and will be for the length of time necessary to satisfy the requirements and the regulatory needs. And perhaps in this, the simplest question that needs to be asked is a very practical one, is can the products be effectively sold? And oftentimes we believe, and I certainly am sure you've been through this, that it's best asked before the product is ready to be shipped. And do you understand the product? I mean, really understand the product and any restrictions or risk management outcomes that will affect how it's labeled. This is a very real potential to affect customer perception and acceptance of your product. And what language, classification, and symbols will need to be placed on the product and in your safety data sheet. And certainly and probably it is, even if all is great with your product labeling and distribution, a key part to making sure all stays well is being sure that there are robust documentation creation and retention processes to serve the regulatory aspects of your product. HSC does not do this alone. It's a shared responsibility. HSC may coordinate it, but it must also be a part of all processes in all those involved departments within your company. Market readiness may also involve multiple countries, and certainly in some cases it involves multiple states or interstate type requirements here in the United States. Can you really assure that you have a full set of regulatory knowledge to get and keep the product compliant in the future? It isn't always just about today. You may need to consider whether compliance will necessitate in-country representation that factually you may or may not have at your company and may need to get elsewhere. And certainly regardless, do you have a global system, or certainly at a minimum a company-wide system anyway, to obtain, store, and retrieve information that may be routinely required to meet the many and varied state and international regulatory requirements. And the need for this information comes from many directions. It comes from regulators, it comes from your customers, it comes from parts of the business who may be asked questions, and is this information even available, or could you even find it? And this may seem obvious, but I'm sure you could all tell a story or two about whether or not it is known, or perhaps better said, communicated, where your products will be sold. This is really not an issue whether you know or understand a particular set of regulatory requirements, but rather a simple issue of have you been informed and will you be informed of all the places where the product will be sold and when, as well as all the uses it is perceived to have. And perhaps it's needless to say, but you can say I'm saying a lot of it anyway, these will impact the documentation that needs to be available and may require additional markings, registrations, and most certainly can impact the languages, any or all, it will have to be created in. And, you know, part of the end game, all products ultimately have to be transported somewhere to be used, to be processed, or further distributed in your distribution chain, your supply chain. Are you sure that restrictions due to the composition of the product, any risk management outcomes that may have come from doing notifications or registrations, or packaging, or the volumes, how will they impact the ability to use a particular mode of transport to move your goods? It's always better to know this before than when it gets time to move it. And oftentimes forgotten, could you honestly say who is responsible for product literature, fact sheets, or advertising materials in your company? Are they tied into the stewardship process? Are you tied into that literature process? Are they aware? Have they been taught? Or is it being screened of what can and cannot be said about the product, and what is being said, how it may affect how it needs to be registered, approved, or labeled for sale? And let's not leave out the subject of the real or actual product as it is sold, the product, that which you sell. Is it understood what's really going on with that product as it's manufactured or processed for sale or use by your customers? Stop and think. Are you sure that mixture really is a mixture, and that no chemical transformation or manufacture is going on as the process of making the product goes on? Is it heated while it's being made or processed? Dried? Is it sold as a liquid when you were told it is isolated as a solid? Any and many more aspects such as this can affect how and what needs to be considered for chemical control. Things like TSCA and REACH, or what the hazard communication aspects will be. And lastly, at least for this particular part of our discussion, just a quick run through of kind of the company perspective. If all really does go well, and I think it usually does in most companies, you get your product to where you intended, which may or may not be your own or someone else's warehouses. Can it be stored effectively and properly and within the requirements? Are there permits, fire codes? And every time I say or think fire codes, I think about Japan's fire code laws. If you're going to Japan, you better understand those. Or any other special labeling or facility requirements there, things such as isolation or temperature requirements or fire suppression that may or may not exist and may or may not be cost prohibitive when they get there. Better to know it ahead of time. So now we're going to get down to maybe where most of us live, and a lot of us do, and that's really in the health, safety, environment, and transportation departments, and what really sorts of things probably ought to go on there. Similar sort of diagram. Certainly the many aspects of market ready are now left to the responsibility of the HS&T department, as I said, and they really look to us to make sure things are ready, at least certainly from all the regulatory things that may affect our product. And certainly from my way of thinking, and I think maybe yours as well, I hope, you have to have a thorough look at chemical control. All your inventory issues, your registrations for TSCA or REACH type and the deadlines, and certainly not just for getting it on the market today, but what are those future plans on tomorrow and next year. We need to look at hazard communication and how that might affect our product and what information is needed. Has our product been properly classified, and is that classification really going to work for the product you're trying to sell in all the countries that it's going to be sold? Certainly in the labels and your SDSs you have mostly and importantly, do you have them all and you have them in the right languages and formats to be compliant? I said transportation certainly in my heart is one of the more important ones because that's how it gets there, because sooner or later you got to ship and have all those trip-ups, all those traps associated with transport been considered. And lastly, and oftentimes it happens at the end of the pipe, are all those local, state, and product-specific needs understood. And I mean understood as told to HSC by marketing. We hope they told us right. We hope we have all the information. Have they been addressed? And kind of lastly, the great question is this a sound program or process within the company that can really be relied on? Or do you know there's holes, or does it often result in problems? As I briefly stated already, it starts with chemical control and the documentation around that, but certainly we don't want to do chemical control at the cost of any of the other aspects. And the central premise that you indeed need to know is what are all the components. And sometimes all the components is just one, sometimes it's many, but you know what they are. And that you really have a reliable method to check those inventories in all the countries and jurisdictions where it's anticipated that the product will be sold. And I purposely put REACH here. It's certainly a part of chemical control, but I called it out because there's many REACH and REACH-like regulations that certainly have very complex registration, notification, record-keeping requirements, timelines, and that they're not all the same. One REACH does not fit all. And if you've been dealing in any of these countries, EU, China, Korea, you certainly know what I'm talking about. We talked a bit from a company perspective about labels and SDSs and all the requirements for them. But the whole aspect depends pretty much entirely on what is done by HSC to ensure compliance. They look to us to know the answers and to do it right. Compliance is understood by HSC as we've been told by the company business entities. Or another way to say it, I assure you, you won't have a Chinese safety data sheet or a Chinese label if you don't tell me you're going to China. HSC also ensures that classifications are correct and comply with GHS and the particular version that's being supported in a given country or jurisdiction. They look to us to get it right. HSC is charged with understanding what language, format, and components are required for SDSs, and if those SDSs are available to the country to be given to the customer. But often it also results in the fact that HSC doesn't always have any or little control as to how or if they ever really make it to the customer. And once again, HSC has a key role in labeling, language, and content, but truthfully has little or no control over what exactly goes on that product as it's shipped and sold. You may be given labels to review, you may write the labels, but HSC is not usually involved in the printing and putting of those labels on our products, on the boxes, and oftentimes there can be disconnects as a result of any of those processes in which we don't, or HSC doesn't get that final view. Where does the transportation responsibility fall in your company? Do you know? In many companies, it's probably one of the most varied things I've ever seen throughout companies is how transportation is handled. But certainly one of the surest ways to ensure a product does not get to where it's going, to its destination, that's a warehouse in your supply chain or ultimately to the customer, is just mess up the transport. Because you may have a wonderful, reliable classification based on good, sound composition, but even if you do, does any of that classification result in mode restrictions for transport? You can't ship it that way. Or is the packaging appropriate for the classification or mode of transport? Or sometimes, and oftentimes, perhaps will it costly, time-consuming, over-packaging type operations be required? And certainly don't forget about those many complications resulting, and I talked about this briefly before, or at least alluded to it, that result from the need to rapidly transport a product. Oftentimes rapid means air, so you rely on air transport, and certainly the prohibitions resulting from packaging's container size or content can greatly affect your ability to transport something on an airplane the way you'd like to. And certainly oftentimes restrictions then go between passenger and or commercial flights as well. I don't think probably in the last 10 minutes or so I've told you a whole lot that you didn't really already know, at least to some extent. And hopefully what I've really done here is put it in a context to allow to access, and you probably have been, how you doing? How you doing? Is things going well? Because certainly the success of a product and its ability to meet customer needs and company objectives relies on a great deal of coordination, knowledge, and reliable processes. And all can be for naught if those considerations of what about the product when it gets to the customer are not factored in. Those issues, are there issues associated with the product because of its properties? And oftentimes those aren't the properties that you're selling it for, they're just the intrinsic properties of that product you're selling. And do those negatively affect those who have purchased your product? And certainly, does it bring reporting sorts of responsibilities to them? Do they have things that will give them problems for discharges or recycling? And one of my favorites, and maybe close to some of you as well, is what about VOCs? What do you know about the VOCs? What have you told the customer or considered about VOCs? And any responsibilities that they may have as a result of VOCs in your product, in the product that you're selling. Well, why is it important? Because hopefully by now, it's not been that long a presentation, you're probably saying to yourself, hey, I get it. I understand what he's saying. We got it covered. And if we don't, well, for the things that we've been doing, it actually hasn't been a problem. But I think we'd all have to agree, at least to some extent, that regardless, you must consider the result of certainly any glitch in your processes that exist today, or a hole in your compliance network. And you know, the one that tends to get us an awful lot, just a simple, uncontrollable burp in the system. You need to think about, you know, what can happen. Certainly, if something happens, little doubt, and I can almost assure you that it'll impact your time to market. what it takes to get that time. Do you have to hold products? Are there recalls? Are you not sure if there's going to be held or there's recalls? Are there going to be fines, penalties? And it may really be a wonderful opportunity, an unfortunate opportunity, to help your company get a grassroots understanding of what the true cost of compliance is. And perhaps, and maybe the most important one, and you probably all know this for your own companies or certainly have thought about it, what above all things is your company's name and reputation worth? Certainly one thing in the press, one thing published in the wrong place can do a whole lot more harm than even severe fines or delays in your product. So, can you say, do you know my products are ready to sell where I want, when I want, in compliance, today, tomorrow, and next year? Can you say that your company works effectively together? That's together is HSC or whatever it's called in your company, marketing, manufacturing, and the people you import things from, and development, to create an effective product stewardship, market readiness situation that assures that your products are ready and available in the markets that you want to sell them in. If not, or if you have some doubts or concerns, ChemADVISOR is here to help. We can partner with you to answer those questions or mitigate those doubts. It may be a long process, maybe a simpler one. But we're certainly in a position where we can check all portions of your portfolio or portions of your portfolio and provide you complete and reliable checks to assess the market readiness of your products. These are things that we're doing every day for customers as we speak. And certainly for this particular process, this which we're calling market readiness, we've created a simple report. It's easy to read. We've worked on it. We've refined it. And we use a standard and easy to read just MS Excel or Excel format to give you a straightforward way to be sure you have. And most importantly, the right substance identity. All the works for naught if we don't know what we've got. I stated that earlier. All inventory notifications are in place. That your stuff's on the inventories in the country that you're selling it in. That your classifications, SDS, and labels line up, that they're correct and appropriate. We look at transportation concerns and classifications. Are they right? And are there potentially any problems with modes of transport or things that need to be looked at further? And certainly we can go into lots of detail, but certainly we're at least at a high level, we identify specific product, state, and local issues depending on where we're doing that market readiness check. And also importantly, where we find these things, and I think important to anyone is not just to find them, but where we find them, where things might not just quite be ready, might not be all in line. We indicate what we see that gap to be, and just to kind of be able to follow through on that, we're prepared to work with you to address those gaps, to assist you in putting those gaps to rest, in implementing sound strategies to ensure that they don't occur again. We can meet you halfway, we can meet you all the way, whatever best suits your needs. But certainly you need to know we understand. We all do. You want and work hard to ensure that your products have saleability, market readiness, and that they are market ready. But we hope that if so, or if not, we can be a part or some assistance to you to meet that end. I'm ready to take questions. We had a few at our earlier sessions. I think this is where Nathan takes over, and you guys come in. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yes, Dennis. We do have a couple of questions. First, however, I'd like to also point out This topic, the idea of market readiness, is one of our going to be one of our themes in 2015, and the information we're gathering, the kind of products we're offering. As part of that, I do want to give you a couple save the date notices. On May 28th, 2015, we will be having a seminar in Brussels, Belgium, and on June 24th, 2015, we will be having an event in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Both of these events will be free to attend, and they will have, you'll take care of getting yourself to the locations, and they're being structured around the idea of this market readiness. What do you need to do to be able to do trade in the world? More information will be coming to our mailing lists, and you can always contact us at info@ChemADVISOR.com or call us at 412-847-2000. So Dennis, the first question I want to take is, how big or small can these market readiness checks be? Let's say you're only doing business in North America. Is that something you can do separate from, say, doing a global check?
The simple answer is yes. It's certainly not a kind of turn the handle sort of process where we only have one or two types. It's really a process designed to meet the customer's needs. If you're only doing business to say U.S. and Canada, or U.S. and usually Canada, that's all we'd look at. We'd look at all the things that would be involved in doing business there. If you're just doing business in one country in Europe, we might do we'd certainly have to look at a lot of those EU-wide things, but we could make it a little bit smaller, or we could do a global one, and you could tell us what your markets are in a broad sense, and we could do it that way. That certainly involves a little bit more time, sometimes a little bit more cost, but yeah, it's a pretty customized, standardized process. I think it's a good question.
Okay. You talked a little bit about some of those special categories like VOCs. How do they get added into one of these market readiness packages? I mean, are they part of the standard package? And if not, how do they get put in?
Well, certainly one of the things we ask, one is to understand your products, your markets, and who you're selling them to, and then really understand those particular regulations that might be of a concern to a company. And VOCs, once again, I mentioned it. I think it's on everyone's mind if you're doing business anywhere in the world. And we certainly include something like VOCs, but it can include others. But maybe to put it in a little bit different perspective, we certainly aren't in a position to calculate a VOC on every product. We're certainly where VOCs come into play, or a particular product is known to have things that have reportable VOCs in them. We would make companies aware of that, and if indeed they're planning or are doing business in those market states, we'd make them aware that perhaps further detail or looking or reporting needs to be done on that.
Okay, thank you. What's the typical turnaround time on one of these things? How long does it take from authorization to proceed to a market readiness report?
Well, I guess everybody wants to know when can I get it and how fast. And I guess I'll start off by saying depends. But I think a usual turnaround, after we've really got the information, we've had a chance to kind of walk through the needs of the particular request, and we have the information and the composition on the products. We tend to look at somewhere around a 2-week, a 10 business day type turnaround, where things start coming out the other end of the pipe, and usually can move pretty reliably 10 to 15 a week. And I think we can even put that in writing, depending on what the needs are, a week to you. So that kind of give you an idea. If you had things that were you really wanted to look at, you might put those up front, and you'd have those in the roughly 2-week timeline.
Okay, thank you. I believe I neglected to mention at the start, we will be making a copy of this presentation available on ChemADVISOR's YouTube channel. That's ChemADVISOR TV. It'll probably go up sometime either tonight or early tomorrow morning, but it'll be up there soon, so you'll be able to watch it as many times as you'd like. And as I said, you're also free. We encourage you, please give us a call. I would love to talk to you at info@ChemADVISOR.com, or give me a call at 412-847-2000. I'm kind of assuming we don't have very many people from Europe on this call, but if you do, we do have our Brussels office information up there on the screen as well. With that, I'd like to thank you for your time this afternoon, and thank you for your interest. Have a good day.
Thank you. Appreciate you all coming. Thanks.